Hey guys, what is up? My name is PandaMaster, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Episode 2 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Apologies for the delay. I meant to do this, on Friday when the episode came out, but then I've just been so freaking busy. I literally just finished the episode. TV's right over there. I just finished it. I turned it off, sat here, got ready. Here we are. Let's talk about the Star-Spangled Man. Another great episode. I loved it. I didn't think it was necessarily perfect. For instance, I think I don't think the pacing is quite as bad as it was during moments of WandaVision, but there are some pacing issues that I know is they're just trying to get the story going, but then it's the circumstances in which Sam and Bucky are brought together is just kind of weird, and I'm not 100% I understand why it happened, they didn't want to devote too much time to, explaining motivations and this and that sort of thing, but to be honest, Bucky, again, let me try and stay away from spoilers here, but it just, the circumstances that brought them together were just kind of surface level a little bit, but what's there in terms of raw content is just it's great. I love it. I love listening to Sam and Bucky banter over and over again like an old married couple, and it's just it's a great time, and I love it. And someone I didn't, and I don't, love is too strong a word right now, but someone I didn't expect to be interested in as much is John Walker, agent, the U.S. agent. Well, technically he is in the MCU known as the new Captain America, right? And without, again, going into spoilers, I'm very intrigued by this character. I know everybody on Twitter hates him, and I understand it, and that's what I was going for, but the man's just it's understandable. I understand the position that he's in, and I can understand where he's coming from. I don't necessarily love the dude, like I said, but, he's definitely an interesting character, and I'm very curious to see what they continue to do with him as the show progresses. I'm very curious to hear about him, as well as someone else that I will refrain from since he was not introduced until this episode, so I will refrain talking about him for now. But yeah, just all of that stuff is very intriguing to me, and I'm curious to see how they're going to handle it. And also, hella props to this show for talking about black people. I think the MCU kind of strays away from politicizing things too much. I'd say Civil War is the most political that they got, in which they basically created their own fictional political scenario that I'm sure you can draw symbolisms to real life, but it's, for the most part, it was kind of its own thing. But overall, the MCU hasn't really dabbled into politics too much. I mean, Black Panther, I would say, would be the only notable exception to this rule. And while this episode, didn't necessarily devote 100%, there's just so much in this about, the fact that Sam is black, the fact that, black superheroes are not held to the same standard as white superheroes. And again, I want to avoid spoilers here because there's some stuff I'm tiptoeing around, but there's some really interesting stuff here that is 100% accurate, because we've seen this happen. I mean, yeah, we don't have superheroes running around in the streets, but things that happen in this episode are things that happen in real life, just with superheroes, and it makes perfect sense. And, I don't believe for a second that this wouldn't happen if we were to have superheroes running around. And so, props to them for telling it like it is. I think a lot of times in black representation in predominantly white media, I think we are well enough now that there aren't too many token characters anymore, and I'm happy about that. But a lot of times it's just they gloss over the reality of living as a black person in America, and I'm really hoping that we continue to see stuff like this. Like I don't know, you can vary it up and everything like that, but I hope that is a theme they continue with, because that's something we haven't really seen too much in the MCU. I mean, Black Panther did a lot for black representation and, that sort of thing, but Black Panther didn't really get into the specifics of what's going on with black people in America. Everyone pretty much knew, right? I don't think it needed to, right? But, and not that Falcon and the Winter Soldier necessarily needs to anyway, but I think based off of what this and WandaVision both have done, it seems these MCU TV projects are simply about, their deep dives into these supporting characters in the Marvel Universe. And so when you have a deep dive, I think you want to know, like, every little thing. And I think that's something that WandaVision did really well, is we got, like, everything in WandaVision had to do with expanding Scarlet Witch's origin, expanding her character, letting people know more of who she is, and I thought that was really great. And the same thing is happening here with Falcon and Winter Soldier, where we're learning what happens after Sam Wilson is done fighting with the Avengers, or Bucky, or anything like that. Like, what is this in between? How do they live their lives? Because ultimately, we don't have the screen time for that in the movies, which makes sense. I mean, those movies are already long, and there's plenty of stuff in terms of, content to go through, especially Avengers movies, which is where these two predominantly show up in. So it's, it's understandable that they're not there, and so it's nice to have this show to get there, but also tell its own story. I'm really excited to see what's going on with the Flag Smashers. They're really curious, and I'm also very interested to see where they take it, as they are kind of portraying them very interestingly, that I will stay away from now, but probably next week I'll get into it a little bit, because I want to don't want to get into spoiler territory, that sort of thing, but I'm very curious about all of that and to see what sort of stuff, because it seems like they're really trying to tackle some big issues in this. Like, this show is getting political in multiple ways, and not like it's out in your face, but in a, like I said, realistic sense. I don't think this show is all about politics or all about not talking about politics or anything like that. I think it's just providing a realistic representation of what it's like to be black in America, what it would be like if the blip happened and people, had to move on and form this new thing, and basically adjust all to have it all just taken back away, right? Like, everybody came back and all of this stuff, and I'm excited to see what more they do with that, because based off of what we've seen from the show so far, I think we're going to learn even more about stuff that we might not have necessarily thought about concerning the blip, about, like, economic things, which, like, they've already mentioned some stuff about, how the blip has affected the economy and society and all of this stuff. And so I really like that, because I don't think that's something we would have necessarily seen in the depth that we're getting here in a film. And so I kind of like that, because I think, hold on, let me check here about the MCU timeline, because it got moved back, because I know Black Widow is coming in July now. So when's the next movie that is set after? Because, Black Widow, it's a prequel, so, that sort of thing. Shang-Chi is the next one, and that's in September, and then Eternals is still in November. So, okay. So until then, we just have these shows, right? We have, and Loki would still technically, I'm curious to see how much Loki will tie into it, but, WandaVision, Falcon, and I think that would be it. I mean, depending on when those later shows come out, the Miss Marvel and Hawkeye, depending on when those go as well, we're getting a lot of backstory and drop about the blip that I don't think, I mean, maybe Shang-Chi and the Eternals could cover it, and I'm sure they'll touch on it, but, again, not to the depth that these shows are doing. And I think that's really cool, and I'm very happy that they exist. And I think this is a good time. for the MCU to do that when we are in this point of, okay, what now? Like, we both Tony and Steve are gone. I keep waiting for Steve to come back, and it's just like, because everybody acts like he's dead, and he's technically not. Like, and I hope it's not going to be one of those things where, like, oh, he actually is dead, but they just, like, didn't talk, like, it's off screen, like, he passed away, like, of old age. Like, I don't want that. Like, give me some sort of, yes, we got an ending, and I am fine with the ending. It's just, if he's being mentioned, because Steve is mentioned all the time in this show, and I don't see that going away. And so I want to know, like, what, like, because my thing is, Steve's old, and, like, yeah, they might want to leave him, but, like, if he's alive, with all the stuff going on, if I were Sam or Bucky, I'd just go to Steve and ask for advice, or that sort of stuff. And it's like, they act like they have no access to Steve anymore. So did he die? Like, I wish they would talk about that a little bit, and I think the reason they haven't is because they're not sure exactly what to do with it. And so yeah, that part kind of, like, bugs me. Again, I understand why, because I think they want to leave the door open, but also they can't, like, I assume, like, maybe they wanted to and Chris Evans was like no, or even, like, Disney was like, no, we're closing the door on this. It's curious. I'm very interested to hear, like, what happened behind the scenes around Steve's involvement in this show. I want to say we'll get a cameo sometime. I want to, but it's like, I think it's a 50-50, honestly. But yeah, I really love this show. I think it's really awesome. Really, really strong episode. Again, just like the first, and I'm really excited to see the next one. But let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below. Like if you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more. I'll see you guys next time for whatever it is I'm doing. All right, see ya.